I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first order of business tonight is item 2A. That's the approval of the minutes from the September 16th meeting. Would entertain a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Tammy, second by Graydon. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item carries. Item 3A, public comment. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public at board meetings. Please note that neither the board nor administration may engage in a dialogue or respond to questions concerning personnel or student matters. This is not an attempt to restrict public comment, but is done to protect the privacy of the individuals involved as required by law. As a matter of courtesy to others in attendance, comments of individuals and groups should be limited to less than 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment? No public comment tonight. We'll go on to 4A, our discussion items, and we will kick it off with a summary of the Facilities Committee. 2 meetings, I guess, since we last met, September 23rd and 30th. So, Graydon and Michelle, if you want to.
Sure. Both meetings had the same theme. We were looking for mostly just focusing in on if we're going to move ahead with a bus garage relocation and the feasibility study that was awarded to us from the Catskill Watershed Corporation for $10,000. We wanted to tailor that grant specifically to the funding components of the garage. Normally those grants are focused on where would you relocate to and things like that. We think that analysis has already been done. We already have land enough, space enough up here to do that, and the footprint has already been conceptually designed, so we really don't need that look at it. But what we need to do is figure out all of our local contributions and grant money that's out there available to be able to fund the actual building of the structure itself and the relocation. Without those pieces, we were not in favor of strapping our taxpayers to move that and spend those kind of dollars without all those pieces in line. So we really spent those 2 meetings holistically looking at and bringing in, we brought in a lot of good people. Everybody that I know personally, from our chief planner of the county, Shelley Johnson, to John Matheson at the CWC, who manages the programs. Labella was represented at the last meeting, who is their consultant that works on behalf of the CWC to do this type of work, and everybody you can think of to try to formulate, including DEP, Aaron Bennett from DEP, and everybody to say, what do we have available to us? And what we want out of that feasibility study is to put everything together neatly to say, if we move it, here's what it's going to be, here's where it's going to be, we think up here, here's how much it's going to cost, and here's where every one of these entities can fill in, whether it's stormwater grants in CWC, whether FEMA's available to move dollars there to move things out, whether it's demo relocation, any of those dollars available to us, and put that in a neat bow so that we can present it to say, yes, we either have the dollars to be able to move that without impacting our taxpayers, or we've come up short and we don't have those dollars, and we push it off and go to a smaller capital project. You know, the elevators in the schools need to be replaced. There's a bunch of other things that need to be replaced. So it's either we do a big project with the bus garage, if we have the funding. If that doesn't work out, then we're going to backstop with smaller projects to fill in. So that's really what both of those meetings were. And one was just a kickoff meeting with the consultants, again, to introduce everybody, things like that. But everyone left there with homework, and really our theme is, and the mission is, find the dollars to relocate it, not at our taxpayers' expense. Otherwise, we're just not in a position to move it. I think that's pretty much our summary.
Yeah, sorry, I was officiating the other night when you had the second one.
So really not a lot. Nothing's changed. We didn't talk about the details of footprints. We didn't talk about what SEDs approved, anything like that. We just literally stuck with, out of this grant, this $10,000 grant, we really need to know where's everything coming from. Put all the pieces together. And it's going to take a lot of pieces to make this thing work. And put them all together for us. That's what we're paying them to do. everybody, CWC was extremely supportive of that, and if that's the outcomes of that grant, that's perfect. That's exactly what we need.
So is this going to continue to work through the facilities committee, or is there?
Once we get, right now, we're just at the kind of meet and greet stage and giving them homework assignments to bring that out. Once we start getting some of those results back, we'll populate that in the library and we'll bring it back through to the full board. But right now, we just don't have anything to present, other than the fact that we've guided them in that area to say, show us where the funding's coming from, otherwise we can't handle it.
So the idea is that this would be fully funded, not by taxpayers,
That's
but
what we're
by
looking for.
grants from multiple sources.
And that's, we did put away taxpayers' dollars into our capital reserve account, so we would be utilizing, those dollars will be targeted. So I don't want to say there's no taxpayers' dollars in it.
Right.
That would be a misstatement, but what we're saying is that, if it's a $18 million project, we have to come up with 14% from the local tax base. We can't tax high enough to generate that. It's not even the realm of reality. In my opinion, it's not reality. So we need to fill out, how do we come up with that, whatever SED will cost share, how do we come up with that match? And it's several $1 million. You probably have to come up with a $3.5, $4 million. So we want it all grants, we don't want loans. Like, we're really pushing hard to say, if this is gonna happen, it can't be on the backs of our taxpayers. Our taxpayers are already up 7% in the last 2 years. We're just not in a position to keep taxing our way through this. It's not gonna happen. So that's our push, unless somebody tells us different. That's what our mission is, and we'll keep delivering results in that way. What I don't know is timing of the vote, because we talked about having a capital vote in the spring. If we can't, they think they can get this turned around, and CWC wants this grant finished before December 31st. So we should have results by then. Whether or not that's enough time for us to get to a capital vote by spring, I don't know. Worst case scenario, we have to go to next fall with it. That's still better than, having to try to find ways to tax our way through a relocation of that size. It's just not practical in rural America, especially for something that, if you look at it, it's kind of a mandate with the electrification of buses that has come top down on us. And, they're like, we're left to figure it out. Well, we're gonna throw everybody we can at it to figure out how our taxpayers don't pay for it.
So we're looking at a postponement of the capital project vote to potentially fall of 2026.
We don't know that.
That's a potential, though.
It is
based
a potential.
on this, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I guess one concern that I have is the long-term use of this property, and just making sure that we've vetted it,
Yep.
right? And that does make the most sense, because we don't have we do have property, but
Yep.
good usable property for facilities to construct in the future. We are space limited, so I don't know if there's been any discussion about other uses for that area, just to make sure that this is the right.
Yeah, they did a comprehensive look at, fields and everything like that, and how things would have to change and have to be consolidated and or re-envisioned. And I think they've already dotted those I's, crossed those T's. I think anything facility building wise would be a more efficient footprint. As you can see, I mean, our enrollment has dropped off tremendously, so, hopefully it doesn't continue to do that. But I think that what space we have now can be made more efficient in the future. If we have to add on, I don't think you'd be making the footprint bigger. You'd be making it more efficient. So I think that's been looked at, but it's never hurts to have a whole set of eyes on it again. But right now, that space, I think, could be utilized for this without a ton of impact. And then the reuse plan for the space we have down on Delaware Street, that hasn't really been looked at all that closely yet either. What becomes of that if we do move forward with it? What happens to it? So that's still got to be looked at too.
Would that be a mandatory tear down as a result of this?
I don't think so, but what would happen is there are funding dollars out there for the tear down, which can be a component of it. So the actual tear down and relocation could be part of a flood buyout type scenario with that land, and a reuse plan put in place where low or no impact. The challenge you have with that site is, I don't know if somebody privately could get away with skirting the flood laws or not. We just can't, as a governmental organization. So, if somebody could go in there and say, I only rebuilt 48% of the value of the structure and get away with it. We know we can't. When you do things especially with the taxpayers' dollars at a school system, the costs are just so high. And it's not going to take very long to get more than half of the value of that building spent repairing. So it's just, we're painted into a corner there pretty bad.
Any other discussion points on facilities?
A lot more in detail coming.
And there's the potential that that property still could be used by the school for a different source, so as long as it didn't interfere with the floodplain, there could still be uses for it, so, the solution isn't to scrap the property, it's to figure out what's the best use of it for the school itself, if there is any use of it. A field of some sort, or
You'd have to, I mean, I would envision a lot of community input sessions. What would the reuse look like, right? Because I'm sure that, as the town is space limited too, you don't want everything to become a park down there, right? You need, ironically, you probably do need some parking in those areas. Some of those businesses probably really want that for some parking areas, who knows? But, I think a community input session, get the mayor, town supervisors, everybody together, and do it right to have public input as to what would be the reuse of that. But that's so far down the road, best case scenario, if we had this thing fully funded, ready to go right now, you're not anything before 29 in the ground, I don't think. So I would say you're at least 3 years out, in my opinion, but best case scenario.
Okay. And in terms of the prioritization of the other projects, is that already established, or would that change based on?
We had that established already. So like I was saying before, some things were like the 2 elevator systems are outdated. There's a bunch of stuff. See, the problem is we have a priority 1 list from that 5-year plan that is tens of millions of dollars over just this project by itself, right? So I think our next project, ballpark, was like 7 to 8 million worth, and I think that was Townsend School, roof work there. There were the elevator systems. There's a bunch of stuff that's on that next priority 1 list. That if this big project is not going to go, you still want to pick up and do. And I think at that point you have the capital reserve to offset that 14% state ed scenario to be able to get that work done. So, we kind of already know that can be done as a backup if we have to. But we're trying to push this one the best we can until we hit a roadblock, and then we have to switch gears. But that could be something the board decides too, is, we're still gonna have a spring vote, and it's just gonna be for the other type of work that can happen.
Yep. Yeah, I think the number's like 70 or 80 million
Oh, yeah.
total from the BCA.
Numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the BCA.
pretty astounding
Yeah.
level, yeah. And when's the next BCA? Is that coming the next year
That
or
would
2?
be,
Or is that?
our next 5-year building plan is probably 4 years out. That was brand new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some time.
It's no, I don't think it's any more than a year old at this point. And just for everybody else's, every year they do a 5-year plan. They do a 5-year look at all your facilities. The actual architects come in, engineers come in, and they do priority 1, 2, and 3 in all of our campuses, and kind of put that out as to here's what your priorities are for work in those areas. So those numbers, if you did them all, is like 80 million. They're astonishing numbers. It's nothing where we're going to get to, but we'll just take like we did before. When the roofs are leaking, the parking lots are failing, you have to start with the structural stuff. You have to.
What's the, is it Capital Advisors, or what's the name of the company that presented previously on the financials?
Fiscal Advisors.
Fiscal Advisors.
Yeah, so fiscal advisors do all of your, if you're borrowing, doing bonding work and things like that, they project out to you what your true costs are going to be and how they're going to get amortized over what period of time and what those are going to cost. They do all those looks for us, and then they're the ones that generate, hey, you can handle, without tax implications, you can handle X amount of dollars on a capital project. Then we kind of reverse engineer what can we pick off the list from there.
If we were considering just a smaller project for a spring vote, would we need to bring them back in again, or is that presentation they did previously still valid?
We would still, I don't believe it costs us anything to do that. Meg works very back and forth with them exclusively. And I think what we would pare down the smaller project and say, we're interested in this, and this, and then they would give us live numbers on that. And then we could share that,
Maybe
bring that
that's
out.
something we should
We've already
You
done
can
that.
do
We have a
it.
cut of that one. That's where that 7 million came from in my head. We did that once, but I think once we get more serious that that's a track we have to go, then Meg will definitely bring them back in. They'll do a full-blown presentation to the board again on that.
Because what's the drop dead for that scenario in terms of when we'd have to make a decision?
For
Do we
the,
know? If we were
yeah, we
to
have a
assume-
timeline in
okay.
the library that was shared to us. If not, it should be hooked to these reports. There is a timeline that was put together for us as to when the capital vote would happen and everything that has to fall into place to make that happen.
Yeah.
Right now, I think we're mid-November as our next like kind of hard date that we have to have some decisions by. So it seems like it's a ways away, but it's right around the corner.
Right. Yeah, I'm just looking at the schedule. Looks like November, right? Because we would
Yeah.
be in December. We'd be getting into Board of Education presentation. So yeah. So are you feel? But we won't have an answer on the bus garage till the end of December.
That's when their grant is, that's when the grant's up by CWC. So CWC wants that thing complete, done, closed out by December 31st. That's what they said. They said it's not gonna take them that long to go through that activity. I don't know if that means, they know our deadlines. We sat,
Yeah.
went through the whole thing and said, this is when we need numbers by. So they know all that. So I just don't know what their time frame is for
Okay.
turnaround.
So I guess we'll wait till your next facilities meeting and see status update then. And
Yeah, I think
and then we can have
every
discussion.
meeting, yeah, we should have,
Yeah.
this is gonna be on our agenda
Yeah.
every board meeting.
Sounds good. Any further comments, questions? Okay. The audit committee went over the findings of the independent audit report with Chip Clark last week for last year, the 24-25 year. And Mr. Clark will present the findings to the entire board at our October 21st meeting. The committee also needs to meet again to conduct a random audit of the internal auditor reports as part of our committee charter responsibilities, and Corey is going to send out potential dates for that additional meeting. The policy committee will meet on Monday, October 27th at 6 p.m. And just as a heads up to the board, we did invite Kai to that meeting. I attended an officers training this past Friday through NSBA, and one of their best practices that they recommended was that because your student board members are typically going to be involved in policy-related issues, that you invite them to your board meetings. And Kai has put out a survey to the students to solicit feedback on our cell phone policy. So that's the first opportunity he'll have to meet with the policy committee to present the results of the student survey, which will come to the board eventually. The finance committee will meet on Thursday, November 6th at 5 p.m. Everybody still good? Still good with that date? The curriculum committee should meet in November after the state data is, testing data is fully released. And Corey will send out potential dates, and the meeting time is typically at 4:30 p.m. Please email Corey your first and second choices for the 24-25 distinguished service awards if you have not done so already. And as a reminder, please send your retreat ideas, board retreat ideas to Ms. Glavin. And there's some example topics there from prior years that we have discussed as possible retreats. We are working on letters for potential advocacy meetings with our local and federal legislators. I'm working on a draft with Corey and Teresa, and those, when they're prepared, we'll send them around to the board for review. But if anybody has specific topics that they would like mentioned in those letters, please feel free to send those along via email. Now we're on to the Village of Walton update. Ms. Glavin.
Yep, so we submitted the request along to the village for that traffic study to be done. That's through Stockton Avenue. And we received a response that they're gonna look forward to doing that. And then when they have the findings, they're gonna be able to report back to us. So if you recall, that is in correlation with what we're doing with the mayor as well. So it's a traffic study. So that is, we're hoping to look forward to getting those results. The ATV piece, we're still in the process of getting quotes for that because we did decide last time that we did want to put signage up as well, even though I think at this point we have I think it's the village has allowed for ATVs, the town has not adopted that yet. So they, as we recall, they were cutting through, so we'll get that signage up once it's purchased. Any questions on either one of those issues?
Next, the Facebook comment. Do you wanna
Yes,
address
I know that was a concern of whether we should have Facebook comments on or not. And I think in the past, it was informational things maybe didn't have them on. Certain things that were posted on Facebook would allow for comments. We did actually touch base with our legal representation, and it was suggested that if we were picking and choosing, that would actually be a First Amendment violation if we were determining who could comment on certain things and who could not. So it was under their guidance and their suggestion that if we're going to shut any comments off, it's all of the comments are off. And at that point, even on something that may be sports related, we would shut those comments off. So Facebook comments off. The question of could they like still or do the emoji, they can still do that. The shareable option is something we can't shut off because based on the fact that that's going to be determined to whoever signed up. So they could still share. We don't really have a means of shutting that off. So if you are good with that, that was something that was kind of the decision and we were shutting those off. As of this board, if we're all good on that, we're turning them off. Discussion, thoughts?
I would just,
Yeah, I just think in light of all the bullying and stuff like that you have on social media, people can either like it or not like it. I don't think comments are relevant. If they're gonna share your post and comment when they share it and do that kind of stuff. There's no control over that, that's okay, but I don't think on our page, if we're putting out the information for people to view, whether it's sports or whether it's anything like that, it's an information push for us, and having comments on it opens the door to having both positive and negative comments. I just don't think as a school district, we should be having those on our website. Like if somebody has negative comments on it and they upset people, that in my mind is a form of bullying to the school and or whatever the content is, the picture. So I would just, I like the idea of having them all shut off, and you know, we should be posting information out there. It's just another informational tool for us. People can like it or not, they can share, they're free to share what they want, but I think if we turn the comments off, we also turn off some liability to the school. That's my opinion to it.
yeah, I would agree with that, and I would point out that the case law shows that the comment section of social media is a limited public comment, basically, that the school has to treat it just as we would a public comment here in front of us. So really, if they're open, it would behoove us to actually respond to those, which creates problematic situations where, you know, and also staffing issues. Obviously, we don't have the staff that could go out and respond to all comments that are put on Facebook. So I agree, Graydon, that,
Yep.
you know, the intent of the social media to me is just a way to engage with issues that are, you know, events that are information that's already posted on our website, and we're just pushing that out as an additional way to share it. As you said, folks they can take that and share it, and it just helps to spread the word. But in terms of the commenting, there's been a lot of, you know, recent issues that have made it to the Supreme Court related to comments on social media that have just caused problems for schools. So I think that it's in the district's best interest to, you know, to turn those off. And I would also point out that we're still here, we still have our public comment period here, that we're welcoming comments. You can email the board still, you can still contact, you know, the normal chain of operations as we would receive information from the school. But this is just something we're looking to do to minimize the risk to the district. Any further comments or questions on that? I guess one point we should discuss is putting out a statement, just indicating that this is the intent of the board. If everybody is in agreement with that, we could draft a statement, basically just stating what we have here tonight.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because I just think that we want to be able to communicate that out, that it's off, instead of someone seeing a post that they've commented previously on a sports thing and not being able to. And I think that's just fair to the community to know that, so.
Again, if somebody really feels passionate, like it's my son or something like that that's on the photo, I'm gonna share it out, and then my share will be, you'll be able to comment on my share. But at that point, it's not the school's domain, right? I shared it, it's on my domain. That's the difference, and I just think that if people understood that, you know, we'd be better off, that's all.
And if we put that, formal notice out, I did follow up with our communication officer, and there is a component on the Facebook when you do shut comments off, that if you are trying to do it, it basically states that they're shut off. So they'll see that anyways, but I think instead of getting that the first time, we
Right.
should put something.
Right, but the statement should be pointing out that this is for informational purposes only. That's the whole point of it.
That's why I think we need it, because that doesn't say that on just the automated piece, so that really should come from by the board. So we'll shut them off, but maybe we can draft something that goes out tomorrow. Because I think we have like Student of the Month coming out, we have a lot of things that are gonna be put on Facebook. Just wanna make sure they're well aware of that.
So we'll work on a draft. All right, the next topic is super evaluation, super eval. If anybody would like a training refresher, then Corey can set that up. They do have a new training hub that has videos available, which I checked it out quick. It looks pretty good, so that could be a first resource. But if anybody wants to have a training, we could set that up. Is there any interest in that? This would basically be just refresher learning how to use the super eval system for the board self-evaluation or the superintendent evaluation.
I did get some dates mid-November, so if anybody's interested, you can just email me and I will send you the dates, and hopefully we can set one meeting for whoever would like to have that training.
And then we have the innovative readiness training, potentially in the summer of 2027. We received, and Graydon, you can add to this because I think the contact came through you, but the county's interested in holding another IRT.
Yeah, so we had a great session with that a couple of years ago now. It has to, you're limited to like one every 3 years or something like that to even apply. So the next round, summer 2027, Shelley Johnson and the county planning contacted myself and said, you know, would you guys be interested in hosting that again? Because all the groups, the Army, everybody loved our campus and thought this was like the best thing for a hosting facility. And I said, you know, I'm sure our board would be interested again, but let's get it on the list and get it in front of people to make sure that everybody's good with that. But that would be the summer of 2027. And again, they provided, I can't remember the total in services they provided. It was quite a bit, but veterinary services, dental services, eye care, as well as general medical. And the hospital helps with that whole entire thing. I mean, like, we had vets come in using some of their equipment. We had the hospital helping out. Like, it's just a great opportunity for like no care, no cost, healthcare, again, dental, vision, all those things here on campus. And we drew quite a crowd. And I think that this time would be more popular because now that people know what's there.
Yeah.
So we drafted a letter of support for that. And that'll be
Right.
going out.
As soon as I
That's
get a
good.
contact person,
Okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
call Shelley.
Yeah, please do.
It was fantastic, and we should continue to do that. It's just,
Yep.
but that's it for the whole county.
Yep.
I think it works really well in conjunction with the facility next to us too. They were really supportive and helped
Yep.
fill in the gaps where they ran out of stuff here too.
And we should reach out to our neighbors. I know New Hope Church, for example, was a staging area for that as well. Maybe we should give them a heads up and see if, actually talk to Shelley, maybe they get a letter of support on them as well.
Okay.
That worked out well. They provided lunch, dinners, put on full-blown dinners over there for them.
I think they had a lot of the people, wasn't really involved, but they staged a lot of the volunteers over there too. So when they had shifts, when they were off shifts, they could go over there and stage them and get materials ready to come over. It seemed like a really good alliance, the way that it worked out.
Yeah, the community did a car cruise that one
Right.
night. I know the boys played basketball back with half of them. It's good community event.
Right, and then the final note, Kai's not with us tonight, but he will be here at the meeting on the 21st, and he's going to provide an update on training that he attended at the BOCES through NISBA. So they offered a student board member training, and he'll be reporting back on that. Any further items for discussion tonight? All right, we'll move on to 5A, correspondence. So as information, this is the letter that we received acknowledging the request for the traffic study from New York State DOT, which Teresa already discussed tonight. And then moving on to 6A, we have our strategic plan presentation.
Yep, so we have pulled it up for everybody. I think everybody has a hard copy as well. But obviously this is an important part of every single year, revisiting what we're planning to work towards as goals. Part of that is also taking a look at the mission, the vision, and the core values, which we have talked about, potentially altering and changing and revising, but these are presently what we have. These were shared out at the strategic planning and stakeholder meeting. So that's important as a means to understand that. In addition to that, we take a look at the board priorities. So these are the 4 board priorities that were set by you. We take all of that mission, the vision, and our core values, along with what was created for and approved. So I want to just read those ones out. The increased student, parent, and community engagement, reduce chronic absenteeism, social emotional learning, mental health and wellness, and instructional excellence. So with those priorities, then we take a look at the stakeholder group and talk through with our academic leadership and programming and work in each building. So at this level, each of our building principals, Adam, I'll read his because Mr. Hoover was unable to be here, but I will go through and have each of the principals talk about what they've done. And I will say, we really took the SMART model as something serious and really tried to make these more measurable so that we could actually see if we were having growth. And it's more than just looking at state exam tests. So more of a holistic approach. So we'll start with Townsend. I'll ask Ms. Hector to begin. Not a problem.
So our first goal there is to increase attendance to reduce the chronic absenteeism rate by at least 5%. So if you just flip to the next page, I just want to show you where you'll actually make sense of that goal. If you look underneath Townsend, it says % chronic absenteeism, and we want this number to go down because we don't want kids to be chronically absent. So if you look at that, in 2022, we had 36.6%. In 2023, it went down, good thing, 29.2%. And then in 2024, it was 27.6%. And then we moved into 2025. We have the district percentage right now. We'll drill this down later at a later time, but it went down, well, it stayed about the same, 27.2% as the district 3 through 8 chronic absenteeism rate. So we're going in the right direction. So our goal is to reduce that by another 5% or reach that 25% goal there. So that's where we're getting our numbers from. I'm gonna flip back to the other page. Our second goal there is based off of our diagnostic screener. So we take the FastBridge test every year in the fall, the winter, and the spring. And this test really drills down to where students are at skill-wise. So you're going to see blanks there because we are creating the baseline now. We're seeing where kids are at. So we are going to increase the percentage of students on or above grade level based on the FastBridge scores from fall to spring diagnostic. So we will have those percentages for you shortly. In the next week or two, we will finalize what those percentages will be there. Our last goal is by the end of the 25-26 school year, we're going to increase parent attendance at school events. There's some examples listed there by 10% compared to the previous year. So we do try to take attendance at all of our events. It's hard to get everybody, but we do our best. So we're going to compare the percentages and really try through communication and engaging families to get them to come out to our events with their children. So that's where our community is. Any questions?
All right. So for Mr. Hoover, thank you very much, Ms. Hector. For Mr. Hoover, for the, our MAC Middle School, if you notice, the next, the first goal, or the next one, does deal with chronic absenteeism. We did meet as an instructional leadership team and starting to try to align where our goals are and putting our energies in the same place. We actually have the exact same goal. You'll see it actually at the high school, but it's increase attendance to reduce the chronic absenteeism rate again by 5%. So we're gonna look as a district on that. And as Melanie pointed out before, and I was gonna take a little bit more time to go through this chart holistically at the end after we read through our goals, but we're looking to have that reduce. That's the one thing we don't wanna see go up. We would like to see that drop. So that is 5% is what we're looking for. For the second one, it's expand overall reach. So you put that, thank you so much. Overall reach, consistency, and frequency of communication between the middle school, homes, and community based on the communication engagement fall survey results. We are sending out a survey on October 9th, so it's this Thursday, that we are going to gather some data about what are the communication platforms that people are using, what are their priorities, getting feedback on that, and with the intent of, one, we want to increase the frequency. We know that I'm going to tell you, that's been shared by multiple people since I've been here, is how can we improve? It is a board priority. We're taking it seriously, and we want to make sure we're engaging people at that level of communication. So we can do frequency charts for the level of what we're putting out. We're expecting to also fall in line with what are we seeing as the engagement and start tracking that a little bit. Part of that, and I'll share this now, for Aptigee, that is our platform for our website that we purchased. So they produce that. We have a communication officer that supports that. We are going to now, as of, I think October 14th, if I recall, is our meeting date to get that started, but it's called Always On, and it's a chat bot that will be on our website to help people navigate to find things. But it's going to give us data. It's going to analyze exactly what people are looking at, where they need the quick links, what they're searching for, and then you'll all have an opportunity with that to give feedback. So if you didn't find what you wanted or it wasn't clear, because that's what we're finding. People are saying, where's the calendar? Where's the menu? This is going to help us with analytics, straight up data, and it's also going to help us maybe improve what we're looking at when we're on each of the sites. So each building has their site, but we have a district site. We have newsfeed. We have those quick links, but you have to find them in menu. So this will give us, I think, the right information to help us support that. So part of that is also going to be addressed at the middle school. Increase fluency of the social emotional learning activities. That also goes along with our board priority with mental health throughout the year by 50%. So they're actually looking at doing a lot more of the activities, some of which are restorative practices. I'll talk a little bit more about that in my superintendent remarks with our effective school solutions and what we're doing with that. And also analyze the participation rate for correlations with mental health improvements. That is going to relate to our social emotional student surveys. So where is that helping to increase? It's a lot of data that's going to happen. Any questions at all on that specific? We're still working to grow academics. I'll talk about that in a little bit when we look at our overall data. But these are strategic goals related to those. Any questions?
Can I just ask, the 5%, and this is across the board, so these numbers for the targets, they don't reflect?
Sorta.
Okay.
Sorta. We're gonna talk about those
Okay.
last. That's an overall picture, because yes, I know there's some I know. So, any questions on the middle school component right now? All right, so I'm gonna ask Mr. Loomis.
All right,
Pick us up
thank
at high
you.
school.
So the first goal we have for the high school is the same. I think between Teresa's explanation and Melanie's, I don't really have to hit on that anymore. The data point is on the same in the back for reference if you're looking at numbers for the high school. The second goal is to implement a comprehensive student and parent engagement improvement plan based on systematic analysis of the current school environment, which will result in a higher scoring for students on the well-being and engagement section of the survey that we give 2 times a year. And that is a result of 2 evidence-based strategies. This is a really fun goal, a really long way to say essentially we're going to implement 2 strategies that are going to increase engagement while simultaneously having the students score higher on our surveys that we send out in the middle of the year and at the end of the year. Our final goal revolves around a portrait of a graduate. We are slowly starting to get information rolling out. So we want to establish and facilitate 3 stakeholder group meetings, including students, parents, community members, staff, and local businesses and organizations, to help complete a comprehensive assessment of the Portrait of a Graduate initiative and develop an implementation plan with identified community partners with measurable outcomes. This will be dependent on how New York State leaks this information. So far, the only updated information we have this year are 4 single-page documents for parents, teachers, students, and administrators. That's not enough to get this rolling the way we need it to. But the idea is the first meeting, we take a look at what is going on inside of our walls here right now that can hit what the Portrait of a Graduate asks for. After that, at the second meeting, we start to take a look outside of our walls. And at the third meeting, we really drill down on what this action plan can be for making it a realistic thing here at Walton. And again, some of that might be dependent on what New York State kicks out to us. If we're kind of doing it and guessing that we might have to revisit this the following year, but this should be a priority for us. It is a K through 12 thing, but obviously the different diplomas and seals that students can get at the high school level, it does have a significant impact to us at our level. So that's why it's a priority for us.
Any questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Lewin. Oh, sure.
So the survey you're talking about is like a climate survey, basically, is that?
Yep.
Okay. I would just request that the board get a report out on those types of surveys, because I know they've been done previously, but we haven't received a summary of.
So
I have a summary of last year's.
Is that what you're looking for, like the percentages for things?
Yeah,
Or
whatever, just-
look at the survey
yeah.
before it goes out?
No, the
Summary
results.
results.
Yeah. Just so that we have a sense for what the climate is, right? That's super important.
And it would be nice to see last year's,
Yeah.
just so we compare it to what's going on between years.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we talked about, is like now that we've established those things, we want to look at that trend data and see if we're moving in the right direction. Some of the people like looking at our community granted data and regions.
And it gives the opportunity to say, these same children are doing these surveys, how they change, they get better as they got older, or they come up with more issues or different problems.
Any other questions for Mr. Lewis? All right, I also want to take this opportunity to say thank you to you. Reiterate again to Ms. Hector, this is a lot of work. I know Mr. Hoover is not here, but a thank you to him. And also a thank you to the strategic team sat together over the summer. So we had stakeholders there that participated in roundtable discussions, as well as the staff that spent the rest of the afternoon working on it and have continued to work. So a big thank you to everybody who's been working on this. Now, looking at some data on the very back, obviously New York State is still going to be looking at exam data. Portrait of a Graduate, as we're getting to, that may shift some of the way we look at this, but these things are still in place. When we look at the proficiency pieces, it even came up today at leadership. Where are these targets coming from and what has happened? Pre-COVID is an area where people were looking back and saying, well, it seems to be that we were in a better spot. Then there's a lot of instructional downtime. Wasn't a loss completely because there was stuff going on virtually and at home, and there was some progress made, but everybody has, across New York State, across the nation, has recognized that there was probably a gap. And so now people are trying to get back to that. It didn't line up completely when we were looking back at some of the actual data from pre-COVID. We're like, well, some places we were doing better already. Some they were not as good. So I don't think that was the direct correlation they were looking at, but a lot of schools are working to try to get back to those percentages. So when we look, we only mapped it back to the 22nd year, 2022. And I marked these in the past when we looked at them at the strategic team. There is green showing on your chart because I want to recognize where there were already improvements. Getting kids back into school, physically here, offering different opportunities has had an impact. So our scores have gone up, our percentages of proficiency, and again, proficiency, if you look, you're tracking also that anybody who's scoring at a level 3 or 4 on the 3 through 8th grade tests. That's what New York State determines as proficient, if you can score a 3. That's important. Now, if we start looking at our targets, there you're gonna see there's yellow. I did not make them red, one, it's hard to see, but two, we also wanna look at yellow as just room for growth. And I think we had put some things in red when we were at the strategic team, but we've been on the movement for improvement, and that's a good thing. So by putting it yellow, we just know that there's need for intervention, which is why we've created our strategic goals. So if we look at the 2025 targets, and we went back and forth about where these targets came from and trying to figure out the calculation, they've been established and they did correlate with your Stronger Connections grant that you received, but there's no rhyme or reason that we're seeing as to why those numbers were selected. So we had a very important meeting today. We talked about this. We spent some time looking at the past data and made some instructional decisions as a team. And we collaborated to come up with the 2026 targets. So for example, you might say, well, last year, at the end of the year, we were looking for 38% 3 through 5 ELA proficiency. As a district, we started looking at that. We only, as a district, made 29. That's across both the middle school and high school. So we need to work more towards that. But in general, I'm going to be honest, that's why I shared some information about the NAEP scores, those national things. In general, students are not performing as well across our nation. And seniors have never performed worse than at any other year when that NAEP or national test was given. So what is that saying? As a nation, we need to look at that curriculum. Maybe there's a massive gap, but we were all kind of wondering and questioning. Everybody kind of went down. So we want to say, let's reset some of our targets so that they're achieved, because part of a SMART goal is it's attainable. If we set the bar too high, it's not okay. With that, if we look across the board, we have reset those targets. To your point, when we do a 5% increase, if we were looking at a chronic absenteeism, we want to drop 5%, to reduce it by 5%. If you notice, we kept the exact same target that we set this year. We strategically want to push for that extra 5%. We are pushing, we want to be really successful, but we also didn't meet our goal from last year. So I know that sounds almost like it doesn't make sense, but when we set the 25, we're hoping to at least make what we had planned for the chronic absenteeism. And I want to put in perspective, even when we looked at the elementary and there was like a 0.6 tenths of a score, that was like 126 days improved. So we don't want huge gains because that's almost unreasonable. So we shot big at 5%. We want to do the 25 and see if we can make that target. Moving on to the regions, obviously, they're still New York State created tests. They are made by New York State teachers. We did very well in social studies. We were excited about that. We're going to take that as a celebration, but we do have room to improve elsewhere. With that being said, across the board, we think these are realistic goals to set. We hope that you can recognize that when we set our strategic plan, we really did take in consideration the 4 board priorities and had stakeholder input to develop those, to be able to move forward. And I think these are reasonable ways to move forward. Any question? Because we don't love 100% proficiency, but we want to make sure these are realistic.
For the chronic absence across the board, they're all reported as 3 through 8. Do we ever get numbers for each school?
Well, it's a district. I probably should have put down there's a district for 3 through 8, and that's my mistake. The 27.2, and I can correct that. I was like cutting. 27.2 is our district percent, so that's not related to 3 through 8. And I probably good catch.
So it's only given at a district level.
That's a district level.
Okay.
And if we look back at some of the data that was provided to us, again, I want to point out we've made steady reductions, which is an increase, in, which is what we want to stay along. But that one, in that case, yes, it does reflect the entire district.
So when do we get the numbers? Like, when do the actuals come in?
Well, in October, they did come, but they're embargoed for a certain time. We aren't going to be able to look at FastBridge or their screening data until this time that we have our conference day. And that's going to be across the board. People are going to look at data. And then we're going to be able to sit down. We do work with the BOCES for them to provide some of those reports. The strategic, you were there, but I don't know if you got to see one of the actual data books that was put together by the BOCES. That is always 1 year behind when we were doing it in August or June. And then they'll be able to put those together, hopefully after November.
Okay.
Because then all the data is in. But it does get valid or verified, all that good stuff, so.
So I'm just trying to understand, like, that
Mm-hmm.
number could change,
The 27.2?
right, which then, like, we
Well-
could have actually done better than that because we don't have the actual.
Well, that one they did
right?
share out right now. They put us, because we are
But I'm
part of
at
the
the school
decent.
level, I'm saying, like, these
Oh,
are.
yes, so when
Yeah,
it breaks
okay.
down to the actual Townsend versus
Yeah,
Mac.
so we
yes.
could have actually
We may have.
done better, and then we could actually adjust this target, so it was a 5%.
We could, and that's
Okay.
kind of why we're still hoping that we can approve this strategic plan. We do know now, the group of sector is gonna meet with people and they're gonna set those specifics for her strategic plan, as well as this can be updated too.
Yeah.
These are what I consider when I worked, these are living documents. As we grow, we adjust because hey, listen, if we're already ahead, we're gonna do something. But these can be adjusted. We adopt, but they're living documents. Any other questions?
Hey, just a comment, and I guess I have a question too. So this is the old one, right? This should be updated,
No, I think that was what
because
we.
it's 24, 25.
The one I have was says 25, 26.
Oh, okay, so maybe this is just,
Maybe. That's just, oh,
because we had communication in the priority.
yeah, all right, yes, we will do that.
Most likely it's the updated.
That's why I looked at it twice, and I was like, wait a second, because we had this, and then
The
I knew
title says
communication was
2026.
right, but, okay.
And then my question is, what is the plan to present to the board? Last year we did quarterly, just the status of each of these actions.
What would you like, since I'm new, and last year, how did it rotate through
I
everything?
think we just do quarterly, that works.
So each instructional quarter you were looking at, or how did you map?
Yeah, we can look separately at the calendar too, but I think if we're just looking for a couple check-in points
Update.
through the year.
So I think what we want to do then is take a look at, I know when our principals are here, usually the first of the board meetings. And if we look and map that out, so it's quarterly across the year,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Is everybody good with that? Yeah.
What, I have in my head, we did like December, March last year.
2 other
Yeah.
times, December.
I think that was it. I think this check-in here,
Yeah,
and then I
this
think
is
it was
one, and then
I think it was in
two.
December and March, just where are we at?
And then-
then we reset
Yeah.
in August.
Right.
Or July, I think it is, like, we do July.
That's the
Right,
right
I think
time.
what-
I think everything got off this year because I was new and strategic plan
Yeah,
got
I
set
think we
later.
missed, just because of the timing, and the
Right.
transition, but next year we could do like a June closeout, which sets us
Right.
up to start the July planning.
I think that was when Mr. McDonald was like,
Yeah.
wait, and do it after I get here, but yeah, so the
right,
timeframe
it
was just
it was
off.
more that,
We
yeah.
can get reset ourselves. So I think we're gonna have to probably take a look at that and make sure that we kind of map that out on the agenda
Mhm.
already.
Right, any other discussion? Moving on to additions to the agenda.
We have 2 additions to the agenda. They are both new business items. One is item 9E to authorize cheer, and that is following a model taken from when we did the track team. And that was added today, the details. And we also, and that's item 9E. And item 9F would be to accept an LPN MOA related to, because we do not have a school nurse at Townsend, we currently have the LPN who is doing some of the RN duties. So that would compensate her for that. And that, again, was added today. That's item 9F. And I also want to just draw your attention to item 9A and 9B, that we added the attachments today. So that is for the adopting the strategic plan, which we will update and correct the board priority areas. And also the targeted review DSIP plan, item 9B. Those were both added today.
Tori.
You're welcome.
Okay, so moving on to 8, the consent agenda. We have personnel resignation of retirements, unpaid leave of absence, emergency appointment, and mentor approvals revision.
I'll move the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Graydon, second by Tammy. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Moving on to 9A, the adoption of the 25-26 strategic plan. And as Corey pointed out, the one page will be revised.
So we will,
Yep.
as corrected.
As corrected. Yep. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Motion by
Second.
Bruce, second by Tammy. Any further comments or questions? Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. 9B, the approval of the Targeted Review District Comprehensive Improvement Plan. Was there anything further you want to mention about this? or-
This was uploaded to the state already, it was one
Okay.
of the things that we've already talked about, but you have a hard copy, you also have access to that. Those were very specific to, if you recall, those groups, the economically disadvantaged students, students of chronic absenteeism. So those 4 goals are very specific. And that's just the paperwork that goes to the state. It was already submitted.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Tammy,
I'll second it.
second by Graydon. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. 9C, this is the creation of the supervising registered nurse stipend position.
I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Graydon, second by Tammy. Are there further comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. And 9D, we are on to personnel appointments. And we, as a note, we're going to table David Peloso's appointment to the next meeting, the October 21st meeting. Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Tammy,
I'll second
second by Bruce. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. On to 10A, our policy review. Ellie, would you,
We have 9E.
We have to do E and F?
oh, whoops,
Always tricky to get you.
thank
Where
you.
do we gotta go?
Appreciate this.
Oh,
We're
back to
gonna-
this.
Oh, got it.
Sorry, I had to catch up.
Okay, so on to 9E.
I'll make the motion to authorize the chair.
Motion by Graydon,
Second.
second by Ellie. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed, Michelle?
Yep.
The motion carries. And 9F, this is accepting the LPN MOA as attached.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Tammy,
Second.
second by Haley. Any comments or questions? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So now we're on to 10A, policy review. So would you please review the policies as part of our, would you read the policies as part of our annual policy review?
Public complaints, donations, gifts, and grants to the district, investments, audit committee, e-audit committee, exhibit, audit committee charter template, purchasing, exhibit purchasing, uniform guidance, internal controls.
Please review those at your convenience, and if you would like to discuss them at any future meeting, we can definitely add those to the agenda. Moving on to 11A, administrator remarks.
Okay, you want to start, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
So I'm gonna focus on what I included in the first part of my report. After one of the last meetings I was at, Teresa offered up our cohort graduation rate. And then we got talking afterwards, we just thought it'd be a great idea to kind of drill down on what makes a cohort, why is that percentage so interesting, and why is it live? So essentially, the class that graduated in 2025, they are technically a 2021 cohort. When students enter ninth grade, that is what forms a cohort. That starts their clock on whether they graduate in 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years. So the percentage that you were told was the 4-year rate. And it's important to know that we are responsible for students if they move out of district and it's not documented. Or if they pursue their GED, obviously if they drop out as well. The only way a student that moves and it doesn't count against us is if they transfer into a high school equivalent program and we get an actual request for records. So if those steps aren't followed, a student that moves away could actually count against us, even though they're not in our district, not in our building anymore, and that happens regularly. It's also important to know that the percentage you look at will vary depending on if you're looking at the district data or the high school specific data. So the district data pulls in your BOCES students, the high school data does not. And just as was why it's important to keep the 4-year rate, 5-year rate, and 6-year rate in your head when you're talking about graduation, I broke down who is currently enrolled in this 2021 cohort. We currently have 5 students still enrolled. 2 will graduate mid-year. 1 student with disabilities will graduate at the 6-year mark. 1 will graduate in June 2026. That's a typo, it should be 2026. And 1 left to pursue their GED. So that's 4 out of 5 students that can still count towards our graduation rate. So if the 4 that are on track are successful, our high school graduation rate at the 6-year cohort will go up to 86%. And we just thought it was a really good idea to kind of explain how that cohort works, because we don't want to underreport how well our students are doing and the hard work of our staff as they go through and try and continue. If they have an issue where they don't graduate on time, or they're at a different pace than someone, we just want to make sure that you have that full picture as you hear about these cohort numbers and what they really mean.
And I just wanted to highlight that too. You had mentioned that 1 is going to graduate that 6th year. We are responsible for students who need up to the age of 22 to be able to graduate. And that's an opportunity for kids that need that. So sometimes it doesn't always look great on 4-year cohort data, but it's what's best for the student. So, and they're also in that percentage.
So will those cohort graduation rates be updated as these students finish? In other words, are we gonna go back and revise graduation, or are we just looking at,
So
these are fixed measurements on a 4-year?
So I think I included, I don't know if it got attached to my report or not, but there is a state report that is updated annually. I don't know if like the day after we exit a kid through graduation, will it update? I don't.
Okay.
No, we get an annual report on that,
Sure.
the state does it. We can track it though. That's, I think, what's important for
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
district. But, yeah, it is only updated annually for New York State.
Talk about students not being lost, and then you track it only on a 4-year cohort, and you still understand that you have 5 students in the process, right?
Yeah.
But the state's going,
Oh, yeah.
check,
And holding us accountable to it. at the
No,
same time.
I like what you're doing a lot better. I like the fact that there's more data on that. I've always wondered what happens to some of these other students. I think we started to progressively ask more and more as years gone
Yeah, the
on.
report that New York State offers, you can click down and literally see every student and the reason why they exited, and whether or not they're still enrolled, or continue their enrollment or not.
Good, I like this a lot better.
Is there a chart that we have already that shows the trend that we are updating, like Graydon saying, when we get, like, the state is doing it, but we're,
like that.
or do you know how the projected numbers, if everybody closes out like we expect them to do, how does that relate to our historic?
So like,
numbers,
if,
is it-
for instance, if we get to the 86%, if those
Yeah.
4 out of the 5 stick with it, and this is our 6-year cohort rate, that is I think, a percentage below where we've been the last few years,
87.
87. We had that one year of 90, I think it was 94, 95.
94.4.
That had to do a lot with New York State saying, all right, the regents, if you're enrolled in the course, you get credit for it.
Yeah, it's COVID.
It was COVID.
During-
It's
it
That was
was a
Ransom's
COVID
class, they just did that
exemption.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
They
COVID
didn't
exemption
have to,
this
they
year.
were all exempt, so they're like, "Ooh, success."
94.4.
So that, yeah, that's an outlier year, but
Yeah.
we've been at around 87. So
Yeah.
this brings us much closer to what our average is based on our current numbers, which is in the high 70s.
So we still have we have a 6-year cohort that we
4, 5.
We
So,
should
well,
potentially
so we can
update a
have
number
somebody
for it.
who's set to graduate at 5 years, not make it. And
Yep.
they could go to the 6-year cohort.
Mhm.
So it's important to understand why it's a live percentage. And we're not gonna have the total cohort graduation rate until you're beyond 6 years.
Yeah.
From when
Yep.
they enter 9th grade.
Good or bad, New York State pumped out that annual report on the 4-year cohort.
Yeah.
So.
When you have a small enrollment, like every
Oh.
child, from a percentage standpoint, every
Right, they
one-
count that
yeah.
much more. And
That's
that
why I'm
swing
wondering.
can happen really
yeah.
quick when you look at, you know, when you look at what it could be at the end of 6 years.
Yeah.
Maybe almost 2% per child.
So I'm just trying to understand, what are the best numbers to look at? The ones that,
For what?
not from graduation, like the ones that you're
I
giving
mean, they
us
all tell,
here,
I mean,
and
Yeah, New York State is.
like,
a
just think about
New
it
York
as a
State doesn't have all
cohort.
the,
when students enter 9th grade, that starts their clock.
yep,
Most students can finish in 4 years. But there's students for a variety of reasons that don't hit the 4-year mark. And it's not, it shouldn't be a reflection on the education they receive. A lot of students have major life events, or, you know, or needs that require us to provide so much support that they just fall behind. I mean, not everyone is gonna hit that 4-year mark. And we see some of the hardest work from our kids when they don't hit the 4-year mark and they wanna prove something to graduate at the 5th year or 6th year. So
And this was an
it's-
issue even at like when I was at CDN and going through that. We have students that take a year off to go to a Rotary exchange program, and that bumps them to a different cohort, and that's not a bad thing. And because of the way they track the 4-year data, that's what they report out. So I think it's good to look at all the data. Like, so when Art is saying that we are looking at the 4, the 5, and the 6-year, it's good for us to look at all of that, because that does show that the students are still working towards something that's their goal.
But it's so hard to predict because each cohort, each group of kids is so different. And they all have a different set of circumstances that they're handling as they go through school, that it's so, one cohort to the next could be extremely different.
I guess what I'm asking is, like, if I go to the New York State website that has this graduation data, is that they're closing kids out at 4 years
4
and
years.
not, so
New York
that's
State
actually
reports
not
it.
correct?
It's
That-
correct,
well, it
because it's
is,
4-year.
but it's not.
But you have to keep in mind that
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
want the actual, it's live for 2 more years.
Right, okay.
And then
People
part of
need-
that,
yeah.
yeah, I think the part of it is just, you have to look everything with data. There has to be a critical analysis of what you're actually consuming.
Mhm.
So we're talking about being a critical consumer of information. That is a case where New York reports that. It's not as updated as it could be. And we're also affording these opportunities for our kids now, and that's not being clearly explained. And they're still holding us accountable to that 4 year.
Yeah.
But like I said, we have to allow to have kids to have the opportunity to graduate at 22 potentially. So I feel like we get dinged for giving the kids the right path that they need. And hopefully part of this New York Inspires and the Portrait of a Graduate, that's gonna look different. Some of what I'll talk about later when I went to NISCUS. It actually speaks on how we can readjust that or look at kids and that program different, but until New York State gives us a different way to actually report that, 4-year cohort is what they're looking at.
Okay.
Just look at
Which
that
is-
critically, that's all we're asking you to
So
do.
basically, they're taking a 4-year cohort is the ideal student, the student body. It's not encompassing the full spectrum of students that are under your umbrella. It's not fair to you. But
Well, I mean, I
It's
think
the
it's
same.
fair, but I think it's important to understand what the difference is with the 4, 5, and 6 years.
Yep.
So when you see 74%, it might be worth asking questions. And I think that's what we came to the conclusion. It's really important for you guys to be aware of that. Thank you very much. accept it?
So we're gonna switch from data, that was much more in depth than what I'm gonna talk about, I'm like, So at Townsend, we had a great turnout for our Effective School Solution Coach, which is where we're studying restorative practices and how we can implement it into the classrooms. This year we have over 20 teachers and staff that have stepped up to join us, so they have meetings after school to learn how they can implement this in school, so they had their first meeting. Very pleased with the turnout, and I'm glad that we're going down this road. So that's very positive. I also want to share that our Ag Club has been doing an awesome job with our garden. They have been harvesting lots of tomatoes, and it's been in our cafeteria salads, and the kids are enjoying them. So just some positives that is happening. Looking forward, tomorrow is our blue shirt day, so it's box out bullying. So we're gonna all be in blue shirts tomorrow, and we have an assembly that's going to support that on the 22nd, really, so we can get on top of that. So that's what's going on at Townsend.
Any questions? All right, thank you so much. And then Mr. Hoover's got his report in there for both as the middle school principal and also as the athletic director. So you can take a look at.
Okay. And then to superintendents.
So, just FYI, I don't wear all this kind of amount of pink normally, so again, we're talking about the blue shirts tomorrow, there's Spirit Week going on this week with the middle school and high school, in anticipation of homecoming. So today in the high school, it was all pink, so in support of breast cancer. On top of that, just running down very quickly, it's been a very busy last few weeks. I actually attended 3 conferences between last Thursday, the Thursday the 25th of September, all the way until I got back to be back in district on Thursday. I attended a NISBA conference that I would have access to as well. It's on governance. I was unable to make the finance committee one. Then I moved right on to the next one on Sunday at NISCUS. That's the superintendent's council one. And this one attended a little bit longer. Actually, Mr. Loomis was there in his superintendent's program. I'm hoping he's walking away with as much as I did, but I want to just give you a heads up on some of the things that I attended. Navigating culture with direction and intention. That was one thing I did. Curriculum and instruction committee meeting. They gave us updates on that. Leading for deeper learning. Leading without losing yourself. Sustainable work, life, motivation, and integrity. Designing forward with New York Inspires, which is transforming systems and centering student voices. I attended breakfast with the commissioner, Rosa, and she had a session for us that were new superintendents. So we talked about everything from advocacy, what we can be doing, rural schools, that came up as well, because a lot of us, we're not getting the same funding at some of the larger schools. And they gave us an update at that breakfast on our New York State and federal funding, with the intent that she wanted to make sure everyone was aware of all the federal funding that was cut. That New York State then turned around and they did lawsuits to make sure that we were still getting that and entitled. We won all 20 of them. Does not mean we still have the money yet. But the federal government is obviously holding out on some of it. She did want to make sure that we were all aware, and that got back to school districts. So we're going to share that. In addition to that, we moved right from NISCUS into a DCMO retreat. So I went with all the other superintendents in DCMO, and we started the process of strategic planning at the BOCES level. The governor and NICED, they did charge us with how can we start to regionalize, how can we start to share. There is concern with low enrollment, low funding, all these different things. So this is us having an opportunity at the BOCES region to start looking at what we can and cannot do, what we are setting as priorities. I did share those out that DCMO had come up with, getting some feedback as to what we might be actually involved in. So we did talk a lot about that at the DCMO retreat, and we're looking at a shared vision for that. What are we going to do? Because we really still want to protect our own identities and make sure that we all share our strengths, but what can we start to help support one another? Not necessarily share, but how can we support? Most of us talked about mergers with sports to start. We've already been doing that with Downsville. And then what are things that the BOCES can start providing to us regionally so that we can be supported? Along with sticking with DCMO, they have a capital building project coming up. So DCMO District Superintendent Mike Rula will be coming on November, I believe it's November 4th. It's our very first November meeting. He's gonna do a presentation. He has a slide deck that is outlining everything from what is the building project doing, what's the timeline for it, and also what is the impact? What would that look like on our tax base? So he is going to be prepared to share that out, answer any questions for you as well. But just to give you some guidance, if they move forward on this, he's gonna share all this out in the fall. They're looking at a vote that would be put out to all 16 districts, all the residents in the 16 districts of the BOCES as of February 3rd, 2026. So that's the vote date. They'll of course set up spaces all around for everyone to vote, including the campuses. In addition to that, the construction phase, if they move forward, if this timeline sticks, and he'll go over this more specifically, it is to start in March 2027 and go till December 2028. So that's their construction. So when we're thinking our CAP project, I was like, maybe you should be aware of this, but he will be coming on November 4th to explain all that. October 28th, just so you guys are aware, you're all invited. I know that Mr. Loomis had shared with that recently, but you are all going to be invited on October 28th to our SUNY Broom Express. And if you're not familiar with that, it is a means of our SUNY Broom, the community college, where all of our seniors for 2026 fill out an application and are accepted at the community college. So it's a grand opportunity for any one of our students to be able to participate in that college for coursework. And I will tell you, and you can probably share too, it is not limited to if they decide, oh, I don't want to go this year. They can transfer back in later. This is an incredible opportunity. We used to do it at Franklin too, but this allows for students to be accepted. Now they fill an application process out, but the big deal is once they do that, they will receive their application or their acceptance letters right there that day on the stage. So it's a big ceremony. We used to do a big deal with it too. You are all invited because obviously that's a huge amount of engagement. That's really them having the opportunity to be accepted at college, and they may or may not go there, but it is a big deal. So.
And it is at 8:30.
In the morning, yep. I think we're going to put that in the Friday letter, the invitation. We're also going to make sure it was sent out. It's in the documents. If you are at all interested, that's a great opportunity to show support. Friday, we're going to have our next superintendent's conference, right? What? No, not everybody gets excited about it, but I do. No, I feel like we had a really good run with the first few days, opening days, and this is going to give us the opportunity to sit down with each other and look at some things and data. We have an agenda that is going to focus on everything from the portrait of a graduate, getting everybody back into what is actually out there, and clarifying as we move forward with what New York Inspires wants us to be doing as we move into creating different pathways for our students, which still involves the New York State Regents. Those tests will be there. It's just not the only pathway for graduation. And again, as a reminder, every kid through their pathway, through maybe 4, 5, or 6 years, will end up with a diploma. And they're not different diplomas now. It's getting it so all students that graduate have one single diploma. So that's a big deal. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the priorities, the strategic plan, how we're all moving forward. We're going to try to keep that momentum going all year. And also take a look at this restorative practices that was mentioned by Melanie. In following along with our Effective School Solutions, that company that's coming in to work with us per the Stronger Connections grant, Jean Knowles, she's coming in. And as Melanie mentioned, there's 25 people, I believe, down at Townsend. We have a whole other cohort of groups. We have an administrative cohort, we have a counseling cohort, we have high school, middle school cohorts, and the elementary. So there's a lot of people are planting the seed, are getting trained in the restorative practices to then be able to encourage others to do that. So much of that relates to the social and emotional connections, the mental health, organizing, building relationships, engaging one another. So we're really helping. That also has an impact on some of our perception survey data that we get later on. So helping us grow. So we'll have a little re-energizer of that, and then there's going to be time for Handle with Care, which is some training that's going to be happening. We have new math, which is illustrated math, looking at our Fastbridge data. So lots going on that day. Last, Effective School Solutions, not only I'm going to be doing some work with the restorative on Friday, but our next time that she is actually in our district, just so you know, it's 4 days every month. So she'll actually be here, that staff developer, to work with all these teams on October 14th through the 17th. So as a reminder, we have no school on Monday. Do not show up. Any questions about any of my remarks or updates? You can all come to the conference day. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all the detail. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
you're welcome.
No need for executive session? I don't believe, correct?
Unless you guys want.
No? Okay.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Tammy, second by Graydon. All those in favor indicate aye.
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 Any opposed?